This phone, iPhone XS, holds a pretty special value to me. Why? It's not the greatest and latest iPhone out there, nor does it have the best specs, but this was my first ever iPhone and my first ever smartphone that I bought with my own money. So I have a pretty special bond with this phone. I bought this back in October 2018 when it came out in September the same year. I have been using it since then for 4 years now, and I have not felt the need of upgrading this phone after all these years. Even though it took some pretty bad hits this year from my hands, it fell a couple of times. I broke the back glass and I have a very minor scratch or crack on my display, which is noticeable from some angles. But still, after all these Apple releases over the past years, I never felt like I have the need to upgrade it, because this phone came out after iPhone 10 or X, however you want to call it. I don't know why people started calling it X, because iPhones have always been named after numbers. So it was iPhone 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and then they skipped 9 and they brought 10. They started using the Roman number X, and all of a sudden people started calling it iPhone X, and this one iPhone XS. But I never used to like it. I always call it 10 and 10s, which made sense to me. On whatever camp you are, no hard feelings. So iPhone 10 was the model that came out with a drastic design change after all those years with the boxy iPhone design with the home button. So iPhone 10 was the one that had the first full display with the notch and telephoto lens in the vertical orientation. And iPhone XS came the year after with just an upgraded chip and this extra color, this golden color. So honestly, I never felt like the need to upgrade the phone, because it still does look really good. If you have a good case on it, or even if you don't have a case, it still does look good with all the new iPhone models. So in 2018, when this phone came out, I got this phone with 2017 MacBook Air. This was my first ever iPhone, and before that I was using this HTC M8 and Android. Switching from that phone to this one, it was blazing fast, and it was a new experience for me using iOS, and also having that Air, I got into the Apple ecosystem, so the overall experience was just great. So after this phone came out, the iPhone 11, 12, 13 and 14 just came out last month. This camera was holding pretty well in my opinion. 12 megapixel main camera, 2x telephoto lens, and it was only missing the wide lens the Pro models had. Last week I got this iPhone 13 mini. This should be technically the second best camera before the 14 just came out. Here are a few comparisons between XS and this iPhone 13 mini's camera. Not bad for a 4-year-old phone camera, right? So if you're not a camera nerd like me, you probably won't even notice the difference between the 13 mini photos and the XS photos. And performance wise, this phone also holds up pretty well. This has the A12 Bionic chip. Right now in the latest iPhone 14s, we have the A16. So it's like 4 generations behind already, but still I wouldn't say the lag is that major that you would notice day to day. But if you were to use the latest phone like 13 or 14 and then you were to switch back to this phone, you would probably notice there are minor lags between using certain apps and how much time it takes to load up. In terms of display, both of these displays, even though iPhone 13 mini came out last year, both displays are 60 Hz refresh rate. It does not have the 120 like the Pro models, 13 and 14 Pro models. Even though it has the same refresh rate, when you use these two phones, you would notice that there is a difference in the experience you have because of the brightness. This 13 mini has up to 1200 nits of brightness, peak brightness, whereas this has almost the half, I think 625 nits. So you probably would notice the brightness difference when you switch between these phones. And if I have any complaints about this phone, it's probably the battery. Even when the phone was brand new, I still wasn't able to maximize most out of it. I probably found myself plugging it in once or twice a day because I extensively use the cameras and I stream, I watch videos. So probably because of my use, but still the battery life wasn't great. Right now it's been 4 years and it's up for service, so my battery keeps on dying. I have to plug it in at least twice or thrice a day. But battery wasn't the best of this model. So the purpose of this video wasn't to recommend this phone to anyone looking to buy a second-hand iPhone out there. Even though you can grab a good deal for around $200 or $300 max with an internal storage of 256 GB with a reasonable battery health. But don't forget, they're gonna stop bringing software updates to this phone, I would imagine, in the next 2 years, because iPhone 10 is already losing some features from the latest iOS 16. So I would imagine to 10s probably they will end giving new software updates by next year or the year after. If it's for 200 or 300 bucks, I would still say it's a win. But however, this video is a tribute to my first ever iPhone and my first ever smartphone that I bought, and I plan to upgrade pretty soon when I have a chance to. Until then, I plan to actually use this iPhone 13 mini. Even though this is only 0.4 inches less than the display size of the iPhone 10s, it somehow feels smaller. But I've been really liking this small form factor, and I plan to use this as my daily in the coming weeks and share my experience with you all. Hopefully I can do a day in my life with this 13 mini. And until then, thanks for watching. I'll talk to you all soon. Peace.